Support for The Bittersweet Life comes from HarperCollins, presenting The Angel of Rome by Jess Walter, a stunning collection of tender and brilliant stories about the moments when life changes you, for the better or the worse.
It just keeps happening. Rome. Over and over. The city reinventing itself for each new generation. And us too, I suppose. If we have the courage and the people to show us the way.
That's Edoardo Ballerini reading from The Angel of Rome, the latest story collection by best-selling author Jess Walter. A starred Kirkus review says that you should prepare for delight. And you should. The Angel of Rome by National Book Award finalist Jess Walter. Available now wherever books or audiobooks are sold. Welcome to Rome. This is The Bittersweet Life with Katy Sewell and Tiffany Parks. Hello, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katy Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
And we are at Tiffany's house.
Again.
Still in the outskirts of Rome. And today we're going to talk about the realities of taking a car trip across Europe, which, if you're just joining us, the way I got to Rome this particular time was that I flew into Berlin, and then I drove from Berlin to Prague, and then from Prague back into Germany to Füssen, and then...
Which is in the south, in the Bavaria, if you're not familiar.
Yes, and then across Austria into Switzerland, and then into northern Italy, down to the Italian Lake District, over to the Italian Riviera, and then into Rome.
Wow, that's a lot. That's impressive.
Yeah, and it's funny, too. It was a lot of driving. But it also... My mother, actually, when we were going from the Riviera to Rome, she said, well, where are you going to stay tonight on the way? And I said, well, it's actually not that far. On the map, it looks so far, but you know, in reality, it's just about 5 hours. It's not like I'm driving halfway across the United States. So when you look at the European map, sometimes the distances are a little bit misleading versus the reality. But anyway, of course, there are joys and there are complications when you decide to do such a thing. And so we thought we'd talk about this. Now, have you ever taken a road trip across multiple countries?
I don't think so. I think we've definitely driven around Germany, but I don't think we've ever crossed international borders in a car. I really don't think so. I could be wrong, but nothing is coming to mind, so I'm going to say no.
Okay. And I've done it a little bit before on the way to your wedding. I drove from Portugal across Spain, and then I actually can't remember how did I get to Rome from there. But I did do a road trip part in Spain, but that's all within Spain. So this is the first time I've jumped, and in one day actually jumped through 4 countries.
Yes. Did you make any stops in Austria and Switzerland?
Not really. I mean, not beyond, stopping to get a snack or stopping to go to the bathroom. But no, we didn't stop otherwise.
So here's a question for you. And this is a totally personal opinion type thing, and people see this differently. If you drive through a country and maybe, even if you stop at, to go to the bathroom or grab a sandwich at the, Auto Grill, do you count that in your list of countries that you've been to?
Yes. I do because, I've seen a lot of Switzerland now. I drove through Switzerland for almost a whole day. You know?
Wow, I didn't realize Switzerland was that big.
Well, it's very windy. The roads were very complicated. There was I told Derek, one of my favorite moments of the trip was when we were coming out of a mountain and we were on this switchback road, which was so tight, where you're going one way and then angling completely backwards the other way and then completely backwards, almost like a seesaw, but with your car, and there's huge trucks coming up it. It was really a feat of engineering, whoever put this road in there, and also, a real challenge to drive. But I feel like I got a really good sense of at least the part of the country we were in,
Okay, well, that means I've technically been in Bosnia. I can count it.
Yeah, there you go.
'Cause I wasn't driving. I was on a bus, and I was with our mutual friend, Suzanne. Mm-hmm. And we drove through Croatia, okay? But there's this tiny, tiny little bit of Bosnia just this like tiny little strip that comes out and meets the sea, and it sort of divides Croatia in half, sort of, and then it continues and it's Croatia again. And we had to drive through that little spot, and we actually stopped there and we almost missed our bus. Like, we were running for the bus. We're like, oh my, we're taking pictures. Oh my God. So I guess I can say I've been in Bosnia, although it was a tiny, tiny little strip. It wasn't a big, long country.
I feel like you have to decide what feels true to you, you know? Like, I can say I've been in China, but I've never been outside of the Hong Kong airport, you know?
Yeah, that's the same for me in the United Arab Emirates. I've been to the airport, and also Iceland, but I don't count those on my lists of countries that I've been to.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So here's the thing. There's always these things that you don't really suspect. So number one, even just renting a car when you're abroad is a little bit of a complication. We were renting it in German. Luckily, people, usually at least I found that they often can speak some English at these car rental companies. Renting a car in Germany was a way easier proposition than renting a car in Italy. I have to say, like, we rented, when we lived here, we rented a car and did a road trip. And I mean, I felt like we were standing at the car rental company desk for an hour, and you're like, and you're just like, what are they doing? You know, they're just like typing, and they're speaking very little English. So you're like, I kind of don't know what I'm agreeing to here. I'm trying to like channel, what do I know about renting a car in another country? Just say no to everything they offer, like they ask you about. So it was way easier in Germany, but luckily, one of Derek's friends in Germany had told us that when we are driving across these different countries, some of them required something called a vignette, and some of them did not. I don't think we would have known that. So vignette is basically like when you cross the border into Austria, for instance, you need a sticker, or let's say the Czech Republic, because that was the first one we did. You need a sticker that you have, that you put on the car, that you pay for, that basically, I think it was like 20 euros, that says, I have paid to legally be driving on these roads. And you stick it up in the corner of your car. If you don't have it, I guess you can be fined like quite a bit of money. And I think it takes, I don't know for sure, but I think it takes the place of tolls. So like once you get into Italy, you're tolled constantly. Mm-hmm. Like anytime you're on a major road, expect to have tolls happen to you. I can even play the sound of the toll woman. Should I play it?
Good.
Okay, I'll put it in. Here she is. I got so used to her voice.
Introdurre il denaro o la tessera. Prego attendere, validazione in corso. Ritirare la tessera. Arrivederci.
So strange how the same woman is at every single place.
I know, she's everywhere. She's everywhere. So yeah, so we learned that you had to get these vignettes, and then so we got one for the Czech Republic. We didn't need one in Germany, probably because the car was German. The car had a German license plate. Then we did need one to go across Austria, which we were barely in. So you're like, I guess we'll buy one, you know? But okay, stuck it up there. We needed it for an hour, then didn't need it anymore. And then we were entering Switzerland. We were trying to figure out whether or not we needed a vignette, right? This was one of the only arguments we got in during the trip. There are a whole bunch of guards standing on the border as we're going into Switzerland. And they are rolled down the window and they say, where are you going? I say, we're going to Italy. You know, there's some confusion because we're not really all speaking the same language. And I just said, the vignette, ? Mm-hmm. Like, is this a thing? And he says, on your left. And I can see a sign up above that is selling a vignette, like a store that's selling a vignette. Derek thinks we need to take a hard left back to their station to get it there. I'm arguing that no, it's this cafe straight ahead of us. That's where we're supposed to buy it. Either way, we've now pulled off the road to try to figure out where the heck this vignette is. Eventually, we end up coming back around the corner, going back by the guards again, because now we're like, we can't get to either spot where we think the vignette is being sold. And a different guard is standing there. And he says, where are you going? And we say, we're going to Italy. And I said, do we need a vignette? And he said, no. So, well, at the very least, because of our argument and our confusion, we didn't end up having to pay the 20 euros. So we felt pretty good about that.
Very good.
So we didn't need one in Switzerland, but it's like little things like that where you're just...
Is it something that you only need if it's a rental car, or do you need it for any car, even if it's your own car?
My guess is that maybe it's something when you renew your license, or when you renew your license plate or something, they just send a new one to you for every year, kind of like car tabs in the U.S. would be.
Okay.
The one we bought, like in the Czech Republic, it was just a printed out piece of paper that we had in the car, and then they entered into the system our license plate saying we had paid. In Austria, it was an actual sticker that was punched saying the month, what month it was valid. So
I have a question. How did you wrangle picking up your car in Germany and leaving it in Italy? I feel like that in and of itself must have been so complicated and expensive.
it was ridiculously expensive. When we were planning this trip, we found a rental car company that said that it would charge us 30 euros a day. And we were like, well, that seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah, that's good.
So we said, yeah. And we booked tickets based on that. And then, of course, note to the wise, if you're planning to do this, they charged us so much to drop it off at a different location from where we picked it up. That, I mean,
that information before you signed the contract or made the agreement?
I mean, we'd already bought the plane tickets. That was our problem. And so we kind of were now locked into no choice. We were either going to have to take trains or we were going to have to just suck it up and find a rental car company. I was joking with Derek that we should just buy a beater car and try to sell it to some dude in
How
Rome.
much was it? We're like, we need to know.
It was over $1,000.
Oh my gosh. Lord.
I mean, I know Derek did a lot of extra digging to try to bring that number down, but it was a lot. It was a lot of money. And also a note to those of you who are planning on either renting a car or dropping it off in Rome. Oh my gosh. Dropping a car off in Rome is like the most terrifying moments of your driving life. I don't know. Driving in Germany was so beautifully civilized, orderly. The scenery was really nice. There was a joke, actually. Have you ever driven in Germany? You said you had, right?
I mean, I think Claudio probably drove. I'm sure that our car was a stick shift, so I didn't drive it.
Do you remember that?
The only place I've ever driven a car, besides Italy, that's in Europe, is Romania.
Oh.
I can talk about, I mean, just 2 words. I won't go into the whole story, but I went to Romania with 2 friends of mine who are Romanian. They're from there, grew up there, they're sisters. And I went to visit them while they were visiting their parents. And we spent some time in Budapest. And then we're like, let's drive to Transylvania and visit the mountains and visit the castles. And so we booked a car. I didn't even think about it. I just booked a car. And we went there. And they just looked at me like, okay. And they looked at me and I'm like, what? And they're like, we don't know how to drive.
Good luck.
Yeah, I was like, what? You don't know how to drive? And thankfully they had an automatic car because I was the only one who knew how to drive on that trip, and it was a blast. But yes, in Germany, I'm sure we had a stick shift car, so Claudio drove it.
So do you remember, though, from when you were driving in Germany that, like, at every exit there's a sign that says asphalt or something like that?
I can't
That's
really
probably
remember.
pronounced terribly.
Yeah, what does that mean, exit?
It means exit. But Derek was telling me a funny story about a friend of his that was driving in Germany as a young person and, of course, didn't know German and just said, wow, that must be the biggest city in all of Germany, because no matter where you drive,
That's the exit.
it's like the arrow's pointing that way. Yeah. So where were we? We were talking about the nightmare of turning in a car in Rome.
Yes, that's what you're talking about. Nightmare of
We had to pause for a second because
really
Aurelia's under the weather, so we had to do a little pause to check. So maybe we weren't talking about even road trip. I don't know.
No, I think you were talking about how hard you were talking about how easy it is to drive in Germany.
Yeah.
And how hard, by comparison, it is to drive in Rome. In
Yes.
Italy.
So even in Italy, I mean, Italy on the freeways is not as civilized as Germany, but it's not horrific. Everybody is a little bit driving like they're in a Grand Prix race. They do seem to follow speed limits to a certain degree, but they do like a drifting thing between the lanes where it's the person in front of you is like, do I want to get right? Do I want to be left? I haven't decided yet, so I'm going to just drive in the middle.
Yep, all the time.
Yeah, because I don't want to commit, and if I commit to the left, you're going to take over the right, so I'm going to just sort of stay. So there's a lot of that. But once you get to Rome, I mean, I've never actually personally driven in Rome because I find the prospect of it so terrifying. So we purposefully stopped outside of Rome and switched places so that I'm not driving anymore. Derek's driving. And it is just, once you hit the city, it is the most stressful 20, 30, 40 minutes, no matter how long it takes you, because you're following, I mean, all along you're following Apple Maps, let's say. And occasionally Google Maps, Apple Maps, they don't know these things. They don't know, like, if they're directing you into an area that you are not allowed to drive in at that time of day.
All the time happens. All the time.
Like, because there are certain parts of Rome, there are certain parts of Florence, there are certain parts of Prague, all these places where you can drive occasionally, but other times of day, if you drive through that area and you're not a cop or like a taxi
or a resident of the area, like if you're a resident of the area, you have to buy the little resident, you have to prove that you're a resident, and then you have to buy the little zone and you stick it in your windshield. Otherwise, if you're not a cab or a bus or or a chauffeur of some kind, you can't drive there during certain hours. It's a traffic limited zone. And yeah.
And so as you're turning left, you see the sign and you're like, oh no, and something, you're like veering right back into traffic and people are honking at you. And then you're like, oh, I have no idea now where to go. And we even know Rome. You're like, okay, if we can't turn that direction, you're just like searching your mental map, like, how do I even get over there?
Yeah, like, Apple Maps is like, turn around, proceed to the route, turn around. And I'm like, no, I can't go that way. Give me an alternative.
I can't proceed to this route. And so you're searching your mind, like, okay, let's see. I need Termini's way over there. I'm way over on the other side of the river. Like, how am I going to get over? Maybe if I take a right here, it will redirect me in some other way. The roads in Rome, there are major roads in Rome, thanks to Mussolini and others, where they made big wide roads. But there are so many little roads in Rome that are just these tiny, creaky little roads. And you end up on those, and there's tourists flying at you, and motorbikes, and scooters, and other cars, and everything. It just feels like everything is flying at the car and from every direction. You will know this because you drive in Rome all the time. And then you have to find a gas station because you're returning a rental car.
Right.
So you're like, okay, I'm going to go to the gas station that's the very closest to where the rental car thing return is, but it's like a postage stamp on the side of the road with one guy with like one pump or whatever. And he sees this all the time. Like, he's the number one stop, for the rental car people. And then, okay, at least we were like, okay, well, at least we know where to return the car. We've returned a car to Rome before. We drive over to where the car return used to be. It's not there.
Oh, no.
So then we're like, okay, where are the instructions? You're trying to get the email out. Oh my gosh, where are we supposed to go? And it's like, follow the sixth signs. I mean, we basically end up doing squares around the block, in this traffic. We finally spot a sixth sign. It's pointing in a direction that definitely is not.
Oh, no.
And basically it's fallen down.
Oh, jeez.
And so it's fallen down, so it's pointing in the wrong direction. And we're like, well, what direction do you think it was one day?
Oh my gosh, this is impossible.
We're like, it was probably pointing in that direction. I don't know if this is interesting or not. Finally, we find the garage. Oh, thank God. Home free. We pull into this garage. It's like private parking in one direction, rental car return in the other direction. We turn toward rental car return, and we come to a gate. The gate is down. It wants some kind of a ticket or a fob. We don't have it. We're returning a car that's from Germany. We're not returning an Italian car. We have no idea. We can't get in this gate. We need to return this car. We can't get in this gate. So I'm jumping out. I'm trying to find anybody. Finally, we find a security guard. He goes off to try to find help. We're pushing the button on the call box. Help us, help us. Nobody's answering, as you know. Ring, 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 no answer. Finally, somebody answers. And we're like, we're returning a German car to 6th. How do we get in this garage? And he lifts the arm for us. And we return it. There's nobody there. So we, as far as we know, we just abandoned the car, threw the keys in a lockbox, and hopefully it's okay. Like, I don't know. I haven't received an email yet. But I mean, every single time I return a car in Rome, it's the same. It's some version of that.
Yikes.
It's not always that bad, but it's always bad.
Yeah, those are the stories that make you like not want to travel. Just be like, oh, God, I can't do this again. I can't put myself through this.
I know, because it's so it's those little things,
More than irritating. I think those moments are so stressful, and And you're like, well, what happens if no one comes? Are we going to have to keep it for an extra day? And how much is that going to cost? And what if we can't get a hold of the person? What if they think we stole it? Like, I mean, you just go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true.
I'm curious what you found as regards to the difference in gas prices from country to country, and also compared to the U.S.
You know, honestly, I didn't really notice too much of a difference between the countries.
Okay.
Although I wasn't really tracking it that well, to be honest. I mean, we were sort of... It was expensive. I mean, gas is expensive for everyone right now. The other things that are expensive that maybe you do think about, but you don't think about, is like you're driving to Prague, but then you're staying in Prague for 3 days. Where are you putting that car?
You have to pay for parking, and you're paying daily for that car that you're probably not using when you're in the center of Prague.
Exactly. So here's what I will say. It was wonderful in the sense that we got to go to a variety of places that we probably wouldn't have been able to go in the same amount of short period of time. We got to do the Lake District, like the place we stayed in the Lake District, which was a little tiny town called Nesso that was like on a cliff. There would have been no way to get there if you didn't have a car, so we wouldn't have gotten to see it. Oh, another thing I really loved was driving through Switzerland and entering Italy. It was so distinctly different once you crossed the border. Not just the smell of Italy, but the vegetation changed almost immediately. The vibe changed almost immediately. And I love knowing there was that distinct a change between the two countries. And I would never have known that if I had never driven from one into the other. Interesting. It really made me appreciate how unique Italy is, because it immediately feels distinctly different the moment you set foot into it. But I will make one final comment. As you know, part of the reason we decided to do a car trip rather than take a train was because of COVID. And we thought, well, if we're in a car together, then we won't have to be wearing masks for hours on end on trains. It'll just be so much more pleasant. Well, if you've been listening along with our journey through Rome on this podcast, you know that I got COVID during this trip. And what could have been a beautiful drive, once you know, becomes now you're two people stuck in a car together for hours and hours and hours, and one of them has COVID and one of them does not. And so what do you have to do? You got to wear a mask for hours and hours and hours and have all the windows down. And so what kind of was like what we considered would be a beautiful ideal of us motoring together and chatting along became me having to wear a mask for 6 hours or whatever, however long we were driving that day.
But on the other hand, if you had decided to book trains and you'd gotten COVID anyway, which you what would you have done? You wouldn't have been able to take the train if you'd had COVID.
Yeah, I know. It's like this double-edged sword, because it's also good. Like in that way, the only person who was exposed to me was Derek, and he had to be exposed to me anyway. He was sharing hotel rooms with me, so there was no way around that. Although it's interesting, when I got it, the first place I realized I had it was in the Lake District, and that place happened to have 2 bedrooms, which was like such a boon, you know, so we each just slept in separate rooms. And the second hotel on the Riviera, there weren't 2 rooms, but there was a kind of an alcove hallway, and the bed just happened to be made up of 2 twin mattresses.
Okay.
And so we dragged one of the mattresses into the alcove hallway and had the other one by the open door to the patio, so the air could be blowing in. And then Derek slept in the hall with the door closed and like the bathroom window open, so he gets a bunch of ventilation this way. I mean,
so far so good. I mean, you've been recovered now. I mean, you had COVID for 10 days. You've been recovered for 4 or so, and he's still testing negative.
He's still testing negative. Yeah, it worked out. But it was not without its hassles, for sure. And one last comment when it comes to driving in Italy, and we've talked about this before, but the auto grills, the only thing on the side of the road. I mean, the U.S. is plagued with fast food and hideous things on the side of all of our highways.
At least there's variety.
At least there's variety, and you don't feel like, oh, the variety of the United States strip mall is so beautiful until you're in Italy, and the only thing on the side of the freeway is the auto grill, and the auto grill is just, I don't know, it's like this, it is a place where you can go to the bathroom, but it's these exactly almost the same stores where they basically trap you. Like, if you want to go to the bathroom, you've got to wind your way through toys and coffee and sandwiches. it must be a nightmare as a parent.
Yes, and you have to wonder, especially knowing Italy, you have to wonder like what mafia deal was forged in order for one company to have the monopoly on every single rest stop in the entire country.
It is very impressive.
Sound isn't on. Okay, I'll fix it. Sit here for just 1 second.
All right. Well, Aurelio needs help with his audio sound.
And homework.
And his homework.
It's time to do some homework.
And plus, let's not relive all the stress of driving.
No.
Overall, it was very beautiful, and I can send you some pictures to post on social media of what it looks like to drive through Switzerland, through parts of Austria, through parts of Germany. Such beautiful spots. Follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Just look for the Bittersweet Life podcast, and you can see images from these places.
Yep.
And until next time, this is the Bittersweet Life. I'm Katy Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
Join us again. Bye. The Bittersweet Life is produced and edited by me, Katy Sewell. My co-host is Tiffany Parks. If Rome is in your travel plans, be sure to arrange a historical tour with Tiffany. To set it up, send us a note through the Contact Us page at thebittersweetlife.net. Also, you could sponsor this show and reach thousands of engaged thinkers and travel lovers all over the world. Send us a note at thebittersweetlife.net to get the conversation started. Our logo is designed by Jody Rick at the Lost Laboratory, web help from Drew Atkins. And this show continues when listeners support it. Tell a friend to subscribe. Write us a review. And like you would with any other art you appreciate, tip your podcaster. Don't steal the tea. Find ways to toss a donation in the hat at thebittersweetlife.net. Thank you. And thanks for spending the summer in Rome with us.